Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com.
And this is Travis from Oddfellows Thoughts on YouTube at Oddfellows Thoughts.
And we are here today, Travis and I, to talk about Marvel Now. Travis, I did not realize this when I contacted you to do this particular episode. It is, as we record this is April of 2013, and this is the 6 months since Marvel Now launched.
Oh, yeah.
So we're 6 months into Marvel Now. It was totally happenstance. I was just thinking, you know what? Travis and I haven't recorded an episode recently, and what's to talk about? What haven't we talked about before, really? And the Marvel stuff just kind of jumped out into the forefront of my mind.
Yep.
And so here we are. So it just happenstance, but it's a good one. Let's see here. So we're going to talk Marvel Now. We're going to talk about the Marvel Now comics that Travis and I read. We're not going to talk about everything, obviously. If we haven't read it, why talk about it, right?
Right.
But first, Travis, I wanted to call attention to a listener of the podcast. I got some feedback from this gentleman a couple days ago, looks like. Almost a week ago. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Time frame doesn't matter. But the feedback does. And this is from Chris Snell. He is the Chris Snell on Twitter. And I tweeted. Let me, since we're talking about Marvel here in a minute, Travis, let me back up for a second. Did you take advantage of that Marvel promotion, the free 700 plus #1 issues?
You mean the one that shut down the servers the first time I tried doing it?
Yeah, the first time. Were you able to?
No.
Oh, you didn't take advantage of that?
I did not. It was digital. It was digital comics, so I did not partake.
That's right. Digital bad.
Well, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it because it the first time they attempted to do it and it screwed everything up and nobody could read their comics. To me it kind of felt like it proved another point as to why my paper comics are better. But
all right, well, we'll table that discussion.
Okay.
So this all started with because I did take advantage of it. As I tweeted, out of the 700 plus #1 issues from the Marvel promotion, I got 79. And then Mr. Snell asked me about that, and we had just a quick discussion about what we got and what we were looking forward to reading. And then, unsolicited, he said, I really enjoyed the previews episode from this week, that was the last episode that I released. Made me second guess some things I overlooked. Can't wait for next episode. So I thanked him, of course, because I really appreciate the feedback that I get for the podcast. And so he responded, I was bummed when it was over because it meant I had to wait for the next one. That was really nice of him. And okay, let's move on, Travis. Let's talk Marvel Now. All right, so back in, let's see, I'm looking at a press release from Marvel. This was released on July 5th of 2012 from Marvel.com. And so what is Marvel Now is the question that they asked. And Tom Brevoort said, Marvel Now is a coordinated creative refresh across our entire publishing line, a unique moment in which the creative reins on virtually all of our quintessential series are being passed from one person to another. And then Joe Quesada said, is the next step in Marvel Now is the next step in Marvel story evolution and character evolution. It's not a reboot. I think a little slam towards DC there at that time. Sure. It is a universe-shifting catch-all which really just tells fans that if you enjoyed Avengers vs. X-Men, get ready for what the outcome is because there's some major changes coming to the Marvel Universe. A lot of changes to the character status quos, alter egos, costumes, creator shifts, design shifts, the way that we do our covers, digital, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying blah, 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 blah to poo-poo Quesada stuff. I'm just, okay, that's enough. That's what Marvel Now was intended. And so Travis and I are going to talk about that and about the particular comics that we are reading. So, one more thing I wanted to point out, Travis. So when this was first announced, you and I talked on one of the episodes. I can't remember which one it was now, but I think one of us said something that this was a response to the success of the New 52 from DC.
Sure.
Or something along that line, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while I still think that is probably partially true, I did, and you know, take this guy at his word. I did listen to an interview with Jonathan Hickman, who is currently on the Avengers books, where he talked about, because he was asked this. This is on Word Balloon, I believe, and so John Suntress asked him about that, or brought it up in some way. Anyway, Hickman's response to that was that it was not a response to the New 52, because they had been talking about this before that was even announced, because some people were starting into their final stories because they wanted to move on to other things, and so management at Marvel decided, you know, why not just do this across, instead of doing it for maybe one or two creators, do this across the line, and, you know, kind of, as they said, refresh it and bring in these other voices for these characters or these storylines or whatever. So you be the judge, I guess, on that. I kind of think there's some truth to both those things, but
let me get my hip waders on.
So are you firmly in the camp that Travis, that it was a response to the New 52?
Sure, it may have been convenient, but I think it's definitely. I believe 100% that it's a response to the sales shift that happened, and they needed to do something. They couldn't stay with the status quo, because there was a sales shift. So they had a response. Now, I mean, it may have worked out well that, you know, for them to do that, and that's great. I'm not holding that against them, but them to try and say that it's not a response, I think is. I don't know who they think they're fooling. Is how I look at it. So.
Well, it is kind of embarrassing when Aquaman outsells any Marvel comic that one month.
Yep.
I just want to point that out. See, Aquaman Travis is cool.
No, but okay.
All right, but we're not here to talk about DC. Let's talk about Marvel now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back into time and talk about the stuff that was released back in October of 2012, and move our way up in time to what's been released now, and just talk in general about what we like about these comics and what we don't like, and who knows what else.
So I'm glad you reread that news brief thing, you know, their announcement and whatnot. You know, because it says stuff in there like it's going to be a change in all this stuff. Did it really, though? I mean, the covers, the way they would look at covers, have they changed other than having that red
ugly red bar? Oh, God, I wish that would go away.
Was that the fundamental change? Because their covers haven't changed. I mean, seriously?
I don't know. I think maybe in some ways, but I didn't really pay attention to the Marvel covers before this, and, you know, quite honestly, I didn't read a whole lot of Marvel comics before the Marvel Now thing.
Well, you know, I certainly wasn't either, but I don't see how they look like comic books to me, I guess. So I don't know. I don't know how.
No, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? They don't look like comic books.
No, they look like comic books. That's what I'm saying. Is they don't. There's nothing about them that's so fundamentally
different
than what it always has been.
Yeah.
To make that statement. I mean, if we're looking at, you know, as a whole, did they follow through with what they said it was going to be? And other than changing creators, I don't know if they've followed through or not.
You know, I will. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I don't know. You know, that bold statement. How much of that did they really, accomplish or meet or, you know, bring to us? I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that in general. That's for sure. Just because I have these two comics right here on my desk as we're recording this, Travis, I'm looking at the Fearless Defenders #3 issue and Hawkeye #9, and I think especially the Hawkeye covers, you'd have to agree, that's different.
Well, that book is just different in general.
Right.
That book is different from the Marvel line. That entire book is different from the Marvel line.
That's true. I agree.
And that book existed before the
that's true.
Marvel.
Yeah, and, you know, of course, that's David Aja's contribution, but I think it's a good example. And then Fearless Defenders, what I've liked about those covers, we're jumping ahead of ourselves, but a little bit. But what I've liked about these covers is that, you know, a lot of the comics, especially DC, does this a lot too, because there's a certain style, right? There's the logo, you have the DC brand logo, you know, all that kind of stuff. And Marvel used to have that as well, to some degree. But now it's, I don't know, at least with Fearless Defenders, it's like the image is the most important part, and they incorporate the logo in there somehow. Like this number 3 issue, it's presented as almost like a tattoo on the back of Hippolyta.
Right. I guess you're right. I guess it did. They did change the fact. Now that you've said that, I remember that was their comment about how they were going to change the way it was. That the art was going to be the important thing, and that they would work the logo in somewhere around. And that's why you get a lot of those Avenger books where the Avenger logo is tucked in somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
I guess I don't get many of those books, though.
And I'm looking at some others that I just happen to have here, All New X-Men. The logo's on there, but it's kind of off in the corner behind the characters. The Marvel Now logo that they have, that red and white thing, that's on all of these. But in different places sometimes. The Wolverine issue number 2, that Marvel Now thing is up at the top above the title, as opposed to the bottom where a lot of these are.
I guess I don't collect the books that those were changes in. I guess, with the exception of maybe Red She-Hulk, because most of them, like Captain Marvel, the banner's always in the same. It's always in the same place. Captain America, I believe, is too. I don't have the book sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four seems to all be.
But there is some. It seems there is some variation there. Although there's not. There's not a whole lot of variation they can do because they have a certain amount of space, and they have to have the brand on there somehow, and that horrible red banner. At the very least, I will say this just an aside. They're now in that red banner. They're promoting Iron Man 3 coming out on May 3rd. At least that is a tiny little part of that red banner, as opposed to that horrible green banner that is all about Arrow, the TV series Arrow from on the DC Comics.
Oh yeah, that's
so
awful.
Sick of that.
Yep.
Anyway, okay.
Sorry, didn't mean to railroad it.
No, that's good. That's a great point you bring up. So, all right, let's talk about the comics themselves and see how they measure up to what the Marvel executives were saying or said about it. Okay, first up, so Marvel Now started in October 2012 with, and like I said, we're only going to talk about the comics that we read, Travis and I. And the official, I guess the real kind of identity brand relaunch title was Uncanny Avengers. That was the new comic coming out that month. That was kind of like the flagship, I guess, if you will, for this whole initiative. So let's talk about that one. And then the other one is Red She-Hulk, number 58, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about Uncanny Avengers. There are 6 issues out so far as we record this. And this is by Rick Remender and John Cassaday on issues 1 through 4. And then Olivier Coipel came on, did number 5, and Daniel Acuna did number 6, as far as the art goes. And so this was a direct result of the whole Avengers versus X-Men event, and where you get a team of some Avengers and some X-Men together. And what did we think of this, Travis? What were your thoughts on Uncanny Avengers?
Well, I only got issue number 1. I guess I got the book with the impression that I was under the impression that it was something that we could pick up, and it would be new reader friendly. I didn't have to have a bunch of knowledge of what was going on beforehand to be able to embrace the book. And my entire household reads comics, and because I have some knowledge of Marvel, I spent a lot of time explaining to everybody else what the heck was going on in the book. I didn't really care for what I read of the Avengers versus X-Men event, and so I wasn't really excited by this book either. That's why I only got issue 1 of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, okay, so I have been getting this this title. I will say I did like. I agree with everything you said about the number 1 issue. It was for something that was like I said, the flagship. This whole initiative, it was too much tied to something else that you would have had to have read before the initiative came out, and I think that was perhaps a bad choice on Marvel's part. But let's see. I did just in general. I did enjoy that first story that because it involved the Red Skull hacking up Professor Xavier and taking his brain. Spoilers out there.
Yeah.
Um, and basically somehow, it's comics, so these things can happen. Somehow able to access the telepathic abilities of this dead X-Man, and essentially kind of taken over New York, or at least an area of New York, and bending Thor to his will, which was bad. That was an interesting storyline. It was okay. I enjoyed it for the most part. Where it's going,
2 month delays.
Well, there were the delays. Yes, you're right.
Holy cows!
Yeah. But at least there's only 6 issues come out in 6 months, whereas you get some of these like All New X-Men, which we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. 10 issues.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be more than 6 issues.
I know,
right? In that amount of time.
But
okay.
I'm kind of glad that they didn't.
Well, sure, but
just to save
if you say this is what your
I know
release dates are going to be and your shipping's going to be and you're off by months,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I hate to keep coming back to DC, but at the very, say what you will about the internal workings at DC right now, over the last 2 years even, but at least things for the most part are coming out on time. And they did at the very beginning of the New 52. I mean, they came out, right? I don't recall. It's been 2 years, so I'm probably wrong, but I don't recall any books being shipped a month or two late.
Nope.
Right?
No.
So that was, but that's, but everybody talked about that. John Cassaday on a monthly book, everyone kind of expected it. Not that that's an excuse, but.
So if you knew it, then why did they why did they schedule appropriately for that? I guess is my thing.
Yeah.
That's frustrating as a consumer to have that inconsistency and whatnot.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially in my case where it wasn't like it was on my pull. I was going to have to go to some chain store to attempt to buy it if I was going to buy the second issue and whatnot, and not really knowing whenever the heck it was going to come out made it even that more difficult for me to even want to attempt to get the second issue.
Yeah.
So,
just to wrap it up on Uncanny Avengers, I'm not sure where this book is going right now, though. After that first storyline, so number 5 and 6, I'm not sure where we're going. It involves something with Kang, and which I actually like that character, but I don't know. This is probably a title I will be dropping in the very near future. Oh, and then there's that whole kerfuffle involving what Havoc said about mutants. The M word. Did you hear about that, Travis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you didn't hear about that?
No. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, which was it? Issue 5, I think, or 6? I can't remember. In one of these issues recently, after the events of the Red Skull thing, Havoc or the Uncanny Avengers had a press conference, and Havoc got up there and talked about how he doesn't like to be called a mutant. He doesn't think that's an appropriate word. His response was, well, someone asked him from the crowd, what do we call you then? And he said, call me Alex. And then there was this uproar on the internet about that. And to me, that's not the really interesting part. The interesting part was Rick Remender's response to that, which was basically, screw you guys. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's my editorializing of his comments. So people should go look that up. But that's how
But that's not even a new conversation, is it? Really?
I didn't think so, but it was
okay.
It was interesting why there's just this feedback that Remender was getting, and he was basically saying, "Go away! I don't want to talk about this with you." So that was weird. It was really strange. But anyway. That's the danger of having the social media that we do now with these creators out there. Then from our perspective, you and I, having started reading comics a long time ago,
right?
We didn't have that. If we found out any news about a comic, it was by happenstance, or you had to go really digging, or you had to be subscribed to some um, you know newsletter that you actually
Right.
received in the mail. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was nowadays. So it's very. I think it's somewhat dangerous for creators to get on there and just give off the cuff reactions to things,
Yeah.
and and then the furor that comes out of that. So anyway,
Well, I just think it's weird that people would be excited by that whole, statement anyway. I don't. To me, that's I don't know. It just feels like that conversation's been had before, so I don't know why it would suddenly make everybody so excited.
I'm not sure either.
I mean, it just feels like those were conversations that were had back in the, in the 80s and stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's been a conversation that's gone along for, back in the Chris Claremont era
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly.
Are we just people, or are we mutants? I mean, are we, So that is,
Well,
to me, that's more. To me, it's more interesting that there be that kind of a crowd reaction to it than.
Well, and it may be that just we get, maybe these are younger readers that haven't been exposed to that older stuff,
Sure.
and so for them that's a new thing.
Yeah.
They're not perhaps familiar with that old conversation that was had back then. So all right, well, that's Uncanny Avengers. It's okay, right? Or less than okay in your opinion, since you only got the first issue.
Yeah.
But a comic that you did continue on, right, is Red She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I have to interject here because while Travis and I were talking about the Marvel Now initiative and all of the titles associated with that, we also wanted to talk about the Marvel comics that we were reading now, small N-O-W now, which includes the following comic that Travis and I will discuss. Back to the show.
And so that came out the same month as Uncanny Avengers. It was a rebranding from the Hulk title at that time, and was rebranded as Red She-Hulk, starting with number 58. And this is by, at least number 58 was by Jeff Parker, and then two artists, Carlos, Pagulayan, I don't know. You want to try to pronounce that name, Travis?
I don't either. Not a clue.
Pagulayan. I'm gonna go with that. And Wellington Alves.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about Red She-Hulk, because I did not read that one.
I'm really enjoying it. It's on the same. It's basically kind of the same overreaching story arc even up to this point. The basic of the story is the government, a branch of the government has decided that they should create their own. That they should redo the super soldier program and create these super beings because, obviously with things like Hulks running around and stuff like that, the government needs to be able to protect the country without having to rely on, quote unquote, free agents, basically. And in the process of them attempting to do that, Red She-Hulk comes in and just basically destroys everything that they're trying to do. And they can't figure out why. We find out in the storyline that Red She-Hulk has somehow come across this little girl who can foresee the future, and she gives Red She-Hulk a version of the future where these super soldiers basically take over the world and make the world a horribly miserable place. So she is, Red She-Hulk is taking it upon herself without really telling anybody else what she's doing to try and stop this whole thing from happening. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't think anybody will believe her, so she is not telling anybody about it and gets herself tangled up with the Avengers. And there's basically a giant manhunt. And the person that they send out initially to try and take control of her and gather information and find out what's going on is Machine Man. And in the process of Machine Man gathering intel on her, he kind of takes her side in what's going on, because there's this secret organization that's been around, that's kind of potentially the forefathers of S.H.I.E.L.D. that have been around for forever, and there's this supercomputer that's like in the center of the earth. Because it's a supercomputer, it can extrapolate all this information and kind of predict the the future or potential futures. And this little girl is actually just kind of a conduit. She somehow can tap into that. She's autistic, but somehow she can tap into that
An oracle.
spin stuff out. Right. And so that's kind of where the book is at. It's actually really, I mean, the first couple issues were, okay, kind of interesting. It's gotten really cool. The relationship between Machine Man and Red She-Hulk has just been a lot of fun. The hunt for them has gotten a lot more serious. She-Hulk has just showed up and offering her services to help chase down Red She-Hulk.
Of course.
Red She-Hulk, yeah. Red She-Hulk has discovered that she's unlike the Hulk. She's in pretty much control of herself when she's being normal Red She-Hulk, but she can actually go into this even more hulking stage where she really looks like a monster and is totally not in control of herself. She maims and kills lots of military people in the process of one of these things. And then so she has to kind of deal with, she doesn't want to be in that headspace and she doesn't want to do this. I mean, she is a good person, but right now most people are seeing her as being an out of control Hulk that they need to just put down kind of a thing. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been a fun romp.
Wow. I want to go read that now based on that description.
Yeah. When they like I said, they bring up this kind of secret, Uber computer kind of a thing. That's when it really got interesting. It was like, oh, this is so much more than just, her beating up on another super soldier type program. There's, it was a lot more to it.
Well, and so that I wonder if that has anything to do with. It sounds really familiar to me. I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with Hickman's Shield series from a few years back.
It may. I don't have that I don't have that, knowledge of that older stuff to,
I wonder if Parker is tapping into some of that stuff. But anyway, and then the whole confrontation with the other. So here you are. You're this superpowered person, and you have this information that no one else has, and so you're acting on that. You don't think anybody's going to believe you, and then obviously they're gonna come after you because you're going, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. So that sounds really interesting. Dang it! I wish I would have picked that up now.
Like I said, I've enjoyed it. It's been a fun read. I have no idea, what the sales are like on the book or whatnot, and
So why did you decide to pick that up?
I don't know tons about the Red She-Hulk character. I was reading Matt Fraction's Defenders, and the character was in that.
Oh, right.
And she was kind of fun in that. And I thought, well, you know what? This is Marvel, I don't think lots of times takes an honest stab at trying to, maintain female superhero books, or at least not my experience. So I thought I would give it a try to kind of support a female superhero book. I like the female superhero books lots of times. And this character was interesting and kind of fun. So I thought, well, I'll jump on this and see what it's going to be like. And, is it going to be a fun read and whatnot? And it pretty much has been. So.
Okay, good. All right. So those, anything else to say about either Uncanny Avengers or Red She-Hulk, Travis?
Nope.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to the second month of Marvel now, November 2012. And we have 6 books to talk about here. Let's start with All New X-Men. And as I recall, Travis, when we talked about the Marvel Now announcement, and we talked about this particular comic, what did you say about that?
That it was ridiculous and absurd. First, it was absurd to call it All New X-Men because, of course, they're taking the X-Men 30 years ago and bringing them up, so they can't be new. They have to be the all old X-Men. Like the dumbest thing ever. You know what? I still hate the title. I mean, I still hate the what they've named the book because it's just, to me, that's still absurd. But I hear the book is really. I didn't get it. I mean, I absolutely wasn't going to get it because it just, to me, it just sounded dumb. And like I said, the title's stupid and whatnot. But I hear nothing but great stuff about the book. It's on the list of things to pick up as soon as it comes out in trade as opposed to hardback. I'll be getting it because everybody's talking about how it harkens back to the, Chris Claremont stuff and,
Well, I don't know about that.
I'll let you talk about his reading it.
Yeah, because I did pick it up, and actually I came to it late. I did not pre-order it. I just happened to, within the first month that it came out, I was already hearing buzz from various, various podcasts I listened to, other things I was reading, and I'm like, really? this concept that you and I both kind of laughed at, it's garnering this kind of response. I'm like, okay, well, I'll check it out. So I was at my comic shop in Spokane, and they happen to have issue 1. I think actually both issue 1 and issue 2 at that time. And
The book comes out like weekly, doesn't it?
yeah, almost, yeah. Well, it's up to 10 issues already by the time of this recording, right? So all new X-Men. I read it. This is by Brian Michael Bendis, and Stuart Immonen did the first 5 issues on art. David Marquez has done 6 through 8, and Immonen is back on with 9 and 10. So all new X-Men. So basically, the premise of this is that Hank McCoy, the current Hank McCoy in the current timeline, goes back in time and steals the original X-Men and brings them into the present because he thinks that they can somehow convince the Scott Summers of the Marvel Now, see what I did there, to get him to stop doing what he's doing. And that's the premise. That is not the interesting thing about the comic, because there's very little of the old X-Men interacting with either Scott. There is in the last few issues, but it's really just a bunch of talking. I'm going to say talking heads, but that's really not. It's not what you're seeing here. But it's really just people. These two people just kind of. This is my side of the story. This is your side of the story, and they just kind of talk at each other. Nothing really gets resolved here. What's interesting, the most interesting thing about this comic, Travis, is Kitty Pryde and Jean Grey. Jean Grey, in particular, she had some limited telepathic abilities. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, coming through time somehow, timey-wimey stuff, I don't know, she suddenly has a lot more power. And she has taken on a kind of leadership role within her clique of X-Men, which that's very interesting. And Scott, who was kind of the ersatz leader of that group, right, back then,
right.
Because of what he finds, and it's not like these characters come to the future and don't know what's happened. They find out what's happened, what has happened. That Jean Grey died, turned into the Phoenix, and then died. Scott's done this horrible thing recently,
mess, yeah.
From Avengers versus X-Men, killing Professor X. All this stuff. Angel found out what happened to him, and he freaks out and is basically saying, I'm going back. I don't care what you guys are doing. I'm going back. And then Jean goes into his mind and calms him down, and then convinces him that way that he should stick around. Which, wow.
Yeah.
And like I said, Scott, because of all this stuff, he's reeling from this revelation that he's this evil person now.
He's a total, yes.
and so he's kind of divorcing himself from anything that's going on. He doesn't know what to do, and and everybody hates him, and so he's having a hard time dealing with it. But like I said, Jean Grey's great. Kitty is taking on basically the Professor X role in this book. So she's the leader of this young band of X-Men, and just seeing her take on the reins of leadership like that is really cool. So I think it's one of the better Marvel books that I'm reading, which like you were saying about the kind of like the bad qualities based on the description. It's working. It's amazing that it's working, but it's working.
Huh.
Okay, so I think it's good. You definitely should pick up the trade, and decide for yourself. But and then the Stuart Immonen art is I think pretty good. No, it's not pretty good. I think it's really good. It's one of the better artists on the Marvel book right now. So. I thought very good book, and I'm going to continue with it for the foreseeable future. And I like the way that it ties into Uncanny X-Men, because I like the only thing, Travis, about Avengers versus X-Men that I liked was at the very end they start to examine what Scott did and how he feels about it, and that second part only a tiny fraction.
Uh-huh.
And when I realized that that's what they were going to do here, in All New X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. That's what drew me into those two books at first, was because that's the only thing that I found interesting out of Avengers versus X-Men. I want to see how Scott, the now Scott, is dealing with the fact that he killed his father, the father figure that
Sure.
Xavier is, right? Even if he was, he's kind of I'm jumping ahead now because that Uncanny Avengers comes later, or X-Men comes later, but he's kind of sidestepping the responsibility because he was, possessed by the Phoenix Force. But really, there's a question about, is that true?
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious to see where that goes and how younger Scott and older Scott interplay with each other. And anyway, so my only concern about this book is, it seems like a limited concept.
Right.
To some degree.
My thought is, yeah.
Because at some point, you can't have. Well, I guess you can. You can tell years and years of stories with these young X-Men in this timeline, and then when they decide, okay, we're going to drop this book, they just go back or something. I don't know, but it's a weird thing dealing with characters coming from the past into the present and how that affects everything. So, but it's working. Okay, we're going to go back and forth, Travis, because you have 3 books that I'm not reading, and I'm reading 3 books. So let's go to Thor, God of Thunder.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not reading that one. But
you're not reading that one?
I wish I had, based on what I'm hearing. But you tell me.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And now, see, here's another character that I use Marvel Now as an opportunity to jump onto a character that I have never read a solo title of whatsoever. But I thought, I like Jason Aaron's writing. I saw some preview art, and the preview art looked really cool. It's kind of a painted style kind of a thing. So I jumped on the book, and I was surprised at how much fun, how interesting it's been. You're basically dealing with three Thors all at the same time, in a sense. You've got this younger Thor before he's really truly the god of thunder. He doesn't have his hammer yet, kind of a thing. He's kind of a young, brash, get into trouble kid, really. And then you've got the Thor from the current timeline, and then you have Thor as Allfather. He's the last of the Asgardians. All dealing with the fact that there's this character who, now I'm suddenly drawing a blank on his name, Gore, I think his name is, who is systematically going across the multiverses, killing all of anything that might be considered a god, any of the deities. I mean, on any abstract planet that's out there, if there's a god of, mushrooms, he's slaughtering those gods. Seriously. I mean, there's gods of house cleaning, they get slaughtered. I mean, it just kills all these planets. These gods are all being slaughtered.
Wait. So how would you like to live on a planet where there's a god of house cleaning?
Well, I'm sure that probably on this planet at one point or another there was a god of house cleaning. As I'm vacuuming up after my kids going, "Oh, god of house cleaning, why can't you fix this for me?" Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, basically there's all these different deities out there, and somebody's wiping out entire pantheons. And the very beginning of the book, it starts out where they've been in a battle or going to battle, something like that. Thor's down by the waterside with a bunch of other, Vikings type things, and this head floats up. It's just a head. It looks like a Native American person, but it's just their head. And Thor recognizes them as having been a deity, and is pretty disturbed by the fact that there's something out there that just took the head off of a god, basically. He encounters this being that kind of tortures him and whatnot, but he manages to get free and hurt this god slayer. And so the god slayer kind of takes it personal to basically be a plague to Thor. And so the story is told from those 3 different perspectives. The old Thor has basically been dogged by the Shadow Army for like 500 years or something like that. They've slowly killed off all the other Asgardians, and they basically left Thor alive, trapped in Asgard, as kind of a torture until the very end of whatever this guy has planned. And he's gone and just butchered pretty much all the other gods at some point or another. And I'm not describing it very well, but it's really interesting to see these different perspectives of Thor. And right now, as the latest issue, the current Thor and the All-Father Thor have gotten together at the end of time, and they are going to go and they're going to go to this home planet of where Gore is at and hopefully defeat him. And it's really funny, the interaction between the current Thor and this old Thor, because the current Thor just can't wrap his head around the fact that he's his dad. He becomes his dad. I mean, he's basically the equivalent of Odin. I mean, he's like, he's wearing this armor, and he's like, no, that's the All-Father's armor. That's not your armor. You don't wear that armor. No, you don't understand. For the last 400 years, I have been it's a fun conversation around the whole and trying to wrap his head around that as they go. Because now we're in the second arc. The second arc's called God Bomb, and basically Gore is building some giant black sphere that is going to annihilate everything, I guess, after that. And now there's starting to be hints at the fact that people have accused this Gore character of, well, aren't you a god yourself, and treating people and being as powerful as you are and stuff. And they give us one issue of kind of a backstory of that character, that he lives in this really horrible planet where people pray to their gods, and the gods don't do anything. Seemingly everybody dies anyway, kind of a thing. He comes upon a scene of some spacefaring people. They may not even actually be gods, but they seem like gods to him because he's a simple, stone weapon kind of a guy. And these gods have crashed down to the planet that he's on. They're all injured and hurt and dying. And one of these, what he figures is a god, asks him for help. And he's lost his child. He's lost his wife. He's lost his mother. He's lost all these people. And every time they've prayed to gods and no one's helped them. And now here's this god having the nerve to ask him for help. And he loses it and basically finishes off this spacefaring guy and takes his weapons basically and starts on this journey to just, I've killed these gods, I can kill others. And that's where he starts out on his hate for all gods. Yeah. Because obviously they don't really care about the people that supposedly worship them.
So you mentioned that the modern Thor and future Thor interact. Does past Thor, does he interact with either of these other timeline Thors?
No, has not yet. The past Thor kind of sets up, because he has the most conflicts with this God Killer early on, the God Killer's life also, and it kind of sets up the young Thor sets up the animosity between the characters.
Okay.
They both get each other at one point or another in a position where they can kind of torture and seriously maim the other one at one point or another. And so Thor thinks that the young Thor thinks at one point that he has finished off this God Killer. And then in current times, we find out that that's not the case. He just went into hiding and has been doing some other work and creating this other power source to come back and deal with them later.
All right.
But the art in it is outstanding. And I can't remember the artist's name.
That's Esad Ribic.
Yeah, it's gorgeous stuff. I mean, as far as that kind of high fantasy looking type thing, It's very cool.
And there are 7 issues out, and I think you said this, but issue 7 starts the new storyline, the God Bomb arc, right? Yeah, I may have to go buy that issue and see if I can pick up the first 6. I may have to add this title to my pull list.
It's cool. I really had fun with it. It's been cool.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. I bought it on kind of a lark. I didn't put it on my pull list. I actually went to the Shane store and bought it because I'd seen some of the preview art on it and was surprised because I really don't have an interest in Thor in and of himself.
Well, see,
until now.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was, because I did get Mighty Thor when that title launched, and I got the first 6 issues of that, which that was a fine enough story. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't knocking my socks off, so I dropped it. And then shortly after that, they did the whole Marvel relaunch on that, and so I see Thor: God of Thunder. I'm like, well, that past series didn't really do it for me,
Right.
so why pick this up? And then this is one of those times where it's like, wow, after hearing all the response and the positive response from the comic book reading community, I'm like, wow, I kind of missed out. It sounds like. So I'll try to get the issues, like I said, or I'll definitely get the trade when it comes out. So okay, let's go to FF. You're reading that one, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and I actually read a few issues and then I stopped it. So FF, this is by Matt Fraction and art by Mike Allred, which is a main reason why I decided to read those few issues. So it's up through issue 6, but I stopped reading at issue 3. And so this is I'll start off, Travis, and then you can catch everybody up where I dropped off. But so this comes out of the Fantastic Four title, which we'll talk about in a second. But the Fantastic Four go off into their year-long space dimensional travels, I guess, and decide that they need to have a Fantastic Four keep an eye on things and continue the Future Foundation stuff. And so they, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Fantastic recruits the current Ant-Man, whose name I can't remember. It's not coming to me. And then they recruit other people too. So they get is it Medusa, the girl with the hair?
Yep.
She-Hulk, and a character they're calling Miss Thing, which is Johnny Storm's replacement for him, who was his girlfriend at the time. She's like, "How'd you like to be a member of the Fantastic Four for what do they say? 4 minutes?
4 minutes.
They're gone for 4 minutes.
They're gone for 4 minutes, so it's gonna be no big deal.
Yeah.
4 minutes.
Just in case of that 4 minutes, Galactus decides to attack.
Right.
Would you, my girlfriend, like to be my replacement on the Fantastic Four? Oh, it's such a crazy concept, but let's see. The only thing I liked about this, Travis, besides the Mike Allred art, and that, like I said, that's the primary reason I even got this, was the Ant-Man, the background for the Ant-Man character. His child died.
Right.
Right. And I don't remember the details, but he's going through that grief, and Mr. Fantastic is basically saying, here is a way for you to deal with this. And so Ant-Man becomes the leader of the Future Foundation. You got all these characters from the previous FF title that I did read the entire run of, 2 years worth, I think it was, and I enjoyed that for the most part. But it wasn't that the FF was bad in any way. It was not keeping me interested enough to keep buying it. So there you go. Go ahead. What do you have to say about FF, Travis?
I just think it's a really. Okay. So here I am again. I own one Fantastic Four book, and it's from the very early 70s, basically, that I bought at a yard sale when I was a little kid. I've never really had an interest in the Fantastic Four, but with the whole Marvel now and then relaunching everything and whatnot, I figured that'd be a time to jump on. And so I give both these a shot. FF I was going to jump on to because of the Mike Allred art. It kind of looked bonkers, the covers we'd seen and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll give this a few issues to see what it is. So I got it. I really like the book because it's quirky. I think Matt Fraction does quirky really well. The recruiting of people I thought was amusing. Each person's why they chose the people they chose and stuff. I thought was pretty funny and somewhat ridiculous with Johnny picking the his girlfriend, his pop singer girlfriend to be to be the fourth member of the group and stuff. The kids are lots of fun. I think. To me, it's just a really fun comic. I don't take it real serious. It has kind of fun moments in it. I can't remember what issue some of the stuff happens in. The Times Square stuff that happens, I thought was some really great moments there. They're some paparazzis have come in to take pictures, and it's actually what's the gang called? It's the Yancey Street gang.
Oh yeah.
Take pictures because they want to discredit the FF because they're not the real Fantastic Four, and it's not the thing, so they're going to discredit. They take some potentially risque pictures of Deirdre, that's the Miss Thing character, and Ant-Man together. So they chase after him, and they end up down in New York Times Square, and there's some great shots there. There's a funny issue where She-Hulk goes out on a date, and the Moloids, is that what they're called?
Uh-huh.
They all look the same. One of them is a floating head in a jar. They've got a thing for
oh yes,
the Jen as they call her. They've got a major crush on her. So they attempt to make the date worse, and they get what's the clone's name? I can't remember what the kid's name is. It's a clone of like the Weather Master or whatever the heck his name is. Yeah. So they get him because he's supposedly an evil mastermind himself. This little kid. They get him to help them screw up the date, and in the process of that, it all goes wrong, and they end up making the date just like 10 times better. They do all this different stuff, and it's just funny. And to me, it's a comic I love reading because whereas so many of the comics you read have these like serious, heavy consequences that are just dire, this one doesn't seem to really have that. It's just a fun romp, and the art just adds to that, kind of gives it this kind of very bright, but still kind of a Silver Age, just kind of a rompy feel to it, and that's why I've been enjoying it because it's just a fun comic.
I don't think it's the Master. Is
Well,
it the
I don't
Wizard?
know who Wizard, right? Is that what it is? Something like that.
Yeah,
No.
it's a clone. Bentley
Disclaimer,
23 is a clone of the Wizard.
Right,
Yeah.
Just disclaimer. Like I said, I don't really know these characters. I know one of the kids, Alec from Power Pack. I know him because way back in the day when Power Pack came out, I collected Power Pack.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only character in that I really know, other than I know most of them by name, but I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what is a Dragon Man. That's like kind of the babysitter. I have no idea who that character is.
Yeah.
I don't really know who the Moloids are, other than the Moloids, and they're funny.
Okay. So
there's two of the other three kids in that group that I
Yeah.
don't really know who they are per se, but
yeah. Well, that was the kids were. These are all kids. These characters were all from the previous run of FF, and
Right.
they were probably some of the best parts of that comic, especially the Moloids. I love the Moloids.
and I say there are some serious parts of the book. I don't want to make it sound like it's just a big goofy thing that there's no consequences or anything. I mean, this Johnny Storm from the far, far future.
Oh yeah,
suddenly
I wanted to ask you about that. So go ahead.
So he's a psycho basket case. If he even really is the real Johnny Storm, I mean, he's missing an eye. He supposedly this creation in the future is it's like if you took like Doctor Doom and like three other of Fantastic Four's biggest nemesis, and they made themselves into one entity, is out there somewhere just destroying everything, and so they've got to figure out what to do. So they decide they're gonna go. Ant-Man decides they're gonna go and do in Doctor Doom. They're gonna take him out, not arrest him. They're gonna kill him. And he goes to the
Wow.
he goes to the Future Foundation, all the kids, and goes, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is our job. This is job number one, to keep this horrible, because all the rest of the Fantastic Four is supposedly dead. To keep all this horrible stuff from happening, we're gonna go and kill Doctor Doom. And the Future Foundation, the kids are like, okay. They've all been tasked because they're all kind of, smart kids. They've all been tasked with trying to figure this out. And Alec, I think he's the oldest of them, is like, wait a second, that's not what the Future Foundation is about.
Mm-hmm.
We're not about doing this stuff. And Ant-Man's like, well, what would you have me do then? Because if we don't do something, this is what's going to happen. So they're kind of left with that. Another chaos ensues. And during that, Alec kind of takes off, and he's now the last place we saw him at. He's knocking on the gates of basically Doom's house, saying, "Hey, we got to find a better way to fix this problem."
Wow.
Also, the other thing that's going on is Bentley Medusa has been coming to him, and I'm not sure it's really Medusa, but it's just because when she talks, when she comes to him at night, and when she talks, her word bubbles are kind of a purple violet color. So I'm not 100% sure it's really her, if he's dreaming or what the deal is. And she's been like coaxing him back into being a bad guy, as opposed to the good guy they're trying to make him out to be. And the last issue the last surprise we get is he's woken up and his dad is there, Medusa's there, and they're like, now it's time for us to, unleash our plan. So there are some serious things going on amongst this kind of fun, quirky stuff. So it's not like it's all just, goofy with no consequences. But I said it's just been a kind of a fun romp.
Sounds like I had dropped it far too soon.
Right about the time things started really picking and doing something. I have to admit, the first couple issues, you kind of go, yeah, okay. Other than the kind of fun art, what's the point of this?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I dropped it.
And all of a sudden, the point, kicks all that. These plots really kick in and start happening.
Now, see, my usual thing is to give a title at least 6 issues, right? But unless it's really, really bad, and I've already decided it's not worth paying that extra $3 to $4 to get up to 6 issues. And it was, but that's. FF wasn't like that. It was just the first couple issues were like, it wasn't impressing me, and I'm buying too many comics, so I'm really looking at how I can reduce, my expenditures here. So, and that was one of them, despite the fact, like I said, I really enjoy Mike Allred's art. So, but again, it sounds like and the funny thing about this, Travis, is that I get this title through my comic shop in Spokane, and they've been, even though I've asked them to remove that title from my list, I've still been getting issues. I got 4, 5, and 6 in my box. I could have bought them.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like fun. All right, let's go. Since we're talking about Fantastic Four, let's go to Fantastic Four proper.
Ugh.
This is not a title I read, so you're gonna have to do all the talking again.
Oh dear.
Fantastic Four is up to issue 7. This is by Matt Fraction again, with art by Mark Bagley, which is a big reason why I decided not to pick this up.
Yeah, I hear you. And then that was the thing. That was the first thing that thought. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to. I thought, everybody talks about how great Fantastic Four is. That it's, this. Well, obviously, it's an iconic Marvel imprint, right? I mean, characters. They've been around for forever.
Yeah, and the whole Jonathan Hickman run, which I have all in trade, up through. I actually got the trades, and then I started getting it monthly from issue 600 until it ended, and what a great story, great story. So great Fantastic Four comic.
So I thought, this is the time. Yeah, I pick on Marvel or whatever. This is the time for me to jump on the book and see what it's about, see if I can get into this. Something I've just never really had an interest in, but I thought, this is the time I'll give it a shot. I like a lot of what Matt Fraction does, so I'll jump on for that. The Bagley art I was a bit concerned about because I really did not enjoy it at all when he was doing, Justice League there for a while. So I was like, but we'll get it and see. It's serviceable. I don't like his art, but it's serviceable is what I figured. So, okay, as long as the story's going to be fine, I'll be happy with it. I tell you, get the first issue, and the best description I can have for it, some of the other people that I talk to about comics, I'll use their description. It was kind of like a setup for the Fantastic Four does the Magic School Bus. If you're familiar with that series of books.
Yeah.
Because what they're going to do is they're all going to gather up and go on this adventure, and they're going to go through other dimensions and other times. The family, the kids plus the Fantastic Four, they go off on this adventure. They're only going to be gone for 4 minutes in our reality, but they'd be gone for a year-long vacation in their reality. And it'd be this teaching experience for their kids, and it'd be all great and whatever. Yeah. Of course, the behind the scenes.
Which is a concept, sorry for interrupting, but which is a concept that actually I wanted to read. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I was fine with that idea, I guess, until I started seeing the execution of it. And behind the scenes problem is Reed Richards is falling apart at a cellular level.
Right.
He's discovered that his elasticity, he's breaking down, and he figures it's only a matter of time before because of what he was exposed to give him his powers and to give the rest of the Fantastic Four their powers, he figures it's going to happen to all of them at some point. And he's dying, basically, falling apart, and he doesn't immediately have a cure. So he thinks he needs to go someplace out there in the multi-dimension, multi-time verse, whatever. That's where he's going to discover this thing that's going to fix him from. So he's hiding, going and searching to fix his problem under this guise of, let's go on this great, educational vacation. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have more family time. It'll be great.
And his family doesn't know this, right?
No, they do not. Well, they do now.
Oh, they do now.
Well,
okay.
Sue knows. Sue knows.
See, and that's another aspect of this story. I knew that this was happening to Reed in this relaunch, and I just eventually I knew that Sue would find out, and I really wanted to see that interaction between those two characters.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, it's not good?
I'm not. I am not. I'm dropping the book.
Oh, okay.
I've got up till now. I pre-ordered it, so I'll get a couple more issues. But it was. Yeah, I'm not enjoying the book enough to continue to get it. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, as that I consume too many comic books and something needs to go, and I've decided this is one of the ones that's going to go.
Okay.
So they go off on these adventures, and they meet a version of, which is one of the things that actually is kind of interesting. They go to where Caesar's being killed, a timeline where Caesar is being killed. They find out that Caesar isn't really Caesar. He's some other alien life form that took over Caesar's body. Long before that, this was an alien traveler who also went to go see Caesar being killed because this is, an important, a significant event. But Caesar dies before he gets stabbed by Brutus and everybody else. So he takes over being this. The Fantastic Four kind of save him. And so this character is in the current timeline and is now the current timeline in Earth and is going to be doing something, which they haven't talked more about that. But that part was kind of maybe interesting. The whole thing was Sue finding out about the fact that Reed is falling apart. It was kind of like a, how dare you not tell me I'm not talking to you? And then she goes and sorts socks.
Oh, what?
Yeah. There was one issue. I can't remember if it was like issue 4. Maybe it was 5. There was kind of a sweet issue. They go to this planet, new alien race. They're there. They're talking to the dignitaries. The dignitaries are all excited to see them because they've heard of humans before and whatnot. They go to this cave, and there's these ancient cave paintings, and the ancient cave paintings are of basically the Fantastic Four, and mostly of Sue. She's basically painted like this giant goddess figure. So of course they're all really impressed with Sue because she is this goddess figure that supposedly, obviously, they had oracles way back then that told about her. Well, you come to find out that in reality, Riches was having a moment where he was just, remembering how much he loves Sue and whatnot. And he actually sneaks off, travels through time, and goes and paints this giant cave painting back in ancient times.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, so he pretty much, it's sweet. It was a sweet story, and it was written very well for a sweet story. But yeah, he basically screwed with these people inadvertently. It really wasn't his intention, but that's what ended up happening. It was a sweet story, but there's just not enough there for me to, it's just bland. It's just really kind of a dull book for me.
So how do you reconcile that because Fantastic Four and FF are both written by Matt Fraction?
I know, and everybody's like, because the community, other people I talk to are all kind of like the same where I'm at. Some of them are liking Fantastic Four more because it is getting more exciting. The last issue was much more exciting, but I've already decided that I'm done with the book.
Yeah.
Even if it suddenly gets really exciting. How do I reconcile it to? I reconcile it in this way, in that Matt Fraction, I think, is very good at writing his thing. Quirky kind of stuff and stuff where it's kind of off the beaten path and is trying to tell something in a different fashion. Whereas, and so FF works because he's just kind of this crazy ride, just like his Casanova stuff is, and some of the other stuff that he's written is kind of this kind of crazy ride.
Yeah.
Whereas, and Hawkeye, we'll talk a little about that too, obviously. Whereas Fantastic Four, it's like he's trying to write something straight, I think, and I'm not enjoying it. But I've not enjoyed anything that he's written, I don't think, where he's just written it straight. And that's nothing against the guy. I like the guy, and I like I said, the quirky stuff he writes, I love. but I think when he writes straight up superheroes with a straightforward
Well, and
story,
say corporate superheroes,
okay,
because Fantastic
right,
Four is a brand, right?
right,
Whereas FF
that,
is not.
all right, okay, fair enough. If that's what it is,
That's how I look at it anyway.
that's not enjoyable
Yeah.
for me. That's not enjoyable because it's mediocre and bland. So
basically, what you're saying is that Matt Fraction needs to go off and do more creator-owned work.
yes, 100% agree. He just needs to put out more Casanova, and I'll be tickled.
Yeah.
Actually, his Hawkeye rocks too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
we'll later, but
Yep.
So if he's given the room to do something different, I think he does great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If he's just toeing the line, it feels like we're toeing the line.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's where I am with Fantastic Four.
Alrighty, let's go to the next one. And Indestructible Hulk is the next on the list here. We're up to issue 6 on that. This is by Mark Waid. The first story arc, issues 1 through 5. The art was done by Laniel Yu, and now we're getting into, I believe it's a 3-part story with Walt Simonson doing the art, and I just reviewed that on my comics review on YouTube. This is not one you're reading, right, Travis? Or are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I don't know. I decided I wasn't interested in the Hulk,
Yeah.
despite what
Well,
Wade might do.
Yeah. So I would not normally have gotten this, except for the fact that Mark Waid was writing it. And so for those that may not know or perhaps have forgotten, so Mark Waid's basically his pitch line for this series was Hulk smash, Banner builds. And so there's a lot of, Hulk is in it, of course, but there's a lot of focus on Bruce Banner being the uber scientist that he is. And in many ways, he's portrayed as even smarter and more imaginative than Tony Stark as a scientist. Even Mr. Fantastic, who are some other uber scientists in the Marvel universe, but Banner he's got like a dozen new ideas that will change the world before lunch. That's kind of how they're portraying him. And to help fund that, Banner makes a deal with S.H.I.E.L.D., basically saying, you set me up with whatever I need to produce these things, these ideas, give me a small team, and you'll benefit from this. The world will benefit from this. And in return, you get to use the Hulk as a weapon. You point him in the direction you want him to go, and that will happen. And so that's the setup. And so far, it's been a very interesting book. In that, Laniel Yu's art is fantastic. The guy is just incredible with what he does. I hope that he returns to the book after the Simonson arc, but I don't believe he does. If I remember correctly, somebody else is doing, because what happens after the Simonson Thor thing, they're going to do a Hulk Daredevil team up. Which I don't know how that's going to work out. Hulk and Daredevil.
That's an interesting combination. Yeah.
But Wade's writing both of those books, so
right.
And let's see, what else can I say about this? This is I was actually going to drop this book after the first story arc, but I wasn't paying attention, and I pre-ordered the Simonson stuff. So I'm sticking around for that. And then I found out, okay, well, Daredevil's there, so I'm going to stick around for that. Where Daredevil works for me, written by Mark Waid in so many ways, Hulk is okay. I really like the setup. I like the idea. I like the focus on Banner as opposed to the Hulk, because the Hulk has never interested me as a superhero. Mm-hmm. I've read some Hulk comics over the years, and I just don't care about a mindless, super strong, super indestructible creature. It just doesn't make interesting stories to me. It's always been about Banner, and Banner is usually not the focus of the Hulk comics. So I appreciate the fact that Mark Waid is doing that now. The only drawback to that is that I don't think we're not seeing enough of that in here, because you gotta have the Hulk in here, right? Because it's the Hulk comic.
Right.
So that's unfortunate, but again, it's a great setup, and if you like that kind of thing, you should probably check it out. What else does? Oh, I remember when we first talked about this, Travis. When we saw that first preview image from Joe Quesada.
He's wearing armor.
He's wearing armor.
See,
Yeah.
that's another thing. I was just gonna say that's another thing that put me off immediately is that's just, first off, I think the name change is kind of silly too, but then putting him in armor, he's the Hulk. Come on.
Well, they do.
Why is he wearing armor?
Yeah, there is a reason for why he's wearing the armor.
Oh, I'm sure they came up with something.
It's supposed to help control the Hulk, and also it record. I guess. Oh no, there's the robot that follows him around and
that gives him a bunch of armor.
Yeah.
They could have put an earbud in his ear and done the same thing, basically.
I know it's kind of.
Oh, dang it! I forgot to say something else about Fantastic Four, but that's okay.
Okay, well I'm done with Hulk. So what?
This is the real reason for me dropping Fantastic Four, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this because I don't know these characters. But on Fantastic Four, so I didn't know anything about the two kids. Their powers, have no idea what they can or can't do. Because they're just basically all these issues.
Reed Sue's children.
Right.
Oh wow, yeah.
I don't know anything about them.
Wow.
And so far they've just been kids. They've just been kids that are obviously smart, along for a ride on this adventure. The last issue I read, horrible stuff happens. The ship gets torn apart and stuff. And at the very end of it, they're like they're at the beginning of time in this situation they're in, and they have to, for numerous reasons, they're going to go to basically to the end of time. And in the comic, the son goes, I can do it. And they're like, whoa, I don't know, that may be a little too much for you. He goes, no, I can do it. And he literally winks them out of the beginning of time to the end of time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I get on Twitter, because that's where all you people at that know all this stuff. And I go, okay, I don't know anything about this kid's powers. What's the deal here? And I basically get a bunch of versions of what he can do. But basically it falls under, well, he's equivalent of a god.
Yeah.
He can pretty much, well, this whole storyline is stupid then. Because why the hell don't they just go, hey, son, I'm falling apart on a cellular level. Why don't you help put me back together again? Oh, okay, Dad. Done. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Dumb. That just blows me finding that out. Just granted, maybe he doesn't have complete control of his powers, blah, 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 blah. But you'd think he'd be using your best tool to help you figure it out, and they're not. And so to me, it makes this whole thing just as stupid could be. I understand part of the whole idea is it's supposed to be family time too, but it shouldn't be family time when Reed Richards is having to wear a thing on his arm because his arm is falling apart. So to me, okay, that's stupid.
Yeah. So what you don't know is that in the previous FF series, there was a lot of focus on the son and daughter, and yes, they together, those two can pretty much do anything, because the daughter is even super smarter than Reed Richards, and she's what, 4, 6, something like that.
She's older than that now.
Is she?
But,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I was, I think when she was not much older than 6, but my memory sucks. So, and the son created his own universe in his closet.
Yeah. See, that's ridiculous.
So you put those two together and they can do anything. So yeah, you're right. The whole premise kind of falls apart, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that. That's what just put me over the edge of that book.
All right.
I just remember.
All right. Last title that came out in November, Captain America, by Rick Remender and John Romita Jr. And they're up to issue 6 on that. I did not pick this up because, like the Hulk, Captain America never has really interested me, and more importantly, I cannot stand John Romita Jr.'s art these days.
Yep.
I just can't. I won't buy it because I just don't like it. So, but you're reading this.
Yes, I am.
And
I had enough people talk to me about this book and how it was kind of a sci-fi book. Really, is really what it was.
Yeah, the buzz I've been hearing is this is a crazy Captain America story in another dimension, and there's weird stuff going on.
Yeah, and I was like, Captain America. We could spend an hour me talking about the things that kind of, worry me about Captain America as a character. It's just a little too patriotic for me, or that's my sense of the character. I've never collected Captain America. I'll say it right up front. And I got nothing against being patriotic. It's just, my image in my head of him is over the top. And so to the point, I haven't even seen the Captain America movie because I just can't.
Oh, really?
I have a hard time. Yeah, which I should, but I just can't get my brain to shift past that. So I was like, yeah, I'm not getting Captain America's out. But then people started talking about it, how he's in this other dimension. It's this survival story. It's this sci-fi story. I thought, well, this might be the time to see what it's about. So I went back and I didn't start reading the book until issue 3, but I went back and got 1 and 2 and started reading them. And it's crazy. It's crazy cool. And, I haven't liked, Romana Jr.'s work since, back in the old days when the New Mutants first started out and he was on that book. I didn't mind him then, but I've not been a fan. I'm still not a fan, but the story is just nuts enough that I can look past the art to have a good time with it. It's just, I can't remember the villain's name. Starts with a Z or something like that.
Arnim Zola.
Yeah. Captain America gets infected with this Zoloft virus, and he ends up getting a version of Zoloft in his own chest. So for years, and a lot of time passes in these 6 issues, like 12 years pass in this 6 issues.
Well, and then there's this kid involved too, where the kid
He's
ages rapidly, right?
Basically. Right. Well, no, the kid doesn't age rapidly. He's been there for 12 years. He snatches up as a baby, thinking that Zoloft is torturing this child, snatches the kid up, saves the kid. And then in a comic, a year goes by. He's got this toddler. And then like 11 years go by, and he's got this 12-year-old with him that he's this entire time has been teaching and educating. The kid's name is Ian. He calls Captain America Dad. Captain America for like years has fought with this television on his chest that nobody else really knows about that talks to him. It's constantly nagging at his brain. It's trying to make him give up, go evil, turn himself in, kill himself, just constantly blah, blah, blah.
Jeez.
So anytime he's unconscious, he's asleep, he's hurt, or anything like that, he's just constantly being badgered by this thing in his chest. It's just crazy and kind of cool. And so, and you got this new character named Jet that is the daughter of Zoloft, and he's raised the daughter as basically telling him that there's this evil scum out there called Captain America in his universe that stole their child and killed the child and all this stuff. And so the last couple books, they've had this, big fight, and they've discovered that the kid is still alive, that actually Captain America, the daughter's like, well, wait a second. This guy can't be that evil. Look, there's my brother. He looks healthy. He looks fine. And he's saying that this guy helped him, not, tried killing him or anything. So it's and Captain America's kind of led a quasi rebellion. They've kind of been hiding, but there's this group of creatures that Zoloft has created in his universe that don't like being treated basically as slaves or food for whatever the other bigger monsters are. So Captain America's kind of been with them and is kind of not really 100% let her revolt, but kind of. And he's gotten most of them killed in the process of this let's stand up for our rights kind of thing. But it's been kind of exciting. I don't know that I'll keep collecting the book after he gets back, because obviously at some point he's going to get back to his own, back to the regular world. But it's been interesting as a sci-fi kind of craziness kind of thing. Yeah. But I also know Captain America fans who don't like it because they feel like Captain America's weak. In this book, he's not the strong tactician, kind of triumphing guy that he is that he has been in the past. Mm-hmm. But
So one of the things you just brought up was, eventually he'll most likely return from whatever dimension he's in, right? So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I think this is a good place to do it, is there doesn't seem to be any continuity in Marvel Comics these days. And Captain America is a good example because he's supposedly off in this other dimension, right? But yet he's in every Avengers book. So when does this thing happen in Captain America, his own series? When does it happen? Before this? Does it happen after it? And there's a lot of that going around in terms of what's happening in the Avengers books and these cosmic events that are happening at the same time that, say, Age of Ultron is happening, where the world is basically destroyed by Ultron, but Brian Michael Bendis is saying this is in continuity, and I'm looking at the Marvel universe as a whole based on what I'm reading and what I'm reading about, and going, what the heck, where Where is everything? How's it working? And I basically my conclusion is I think Marvel just says we don't care about that. We're just trying to tell good stories about these characters in these situations. Continuity be damned for the most part. What do you think about that?
It's yeah, well, okay. Here's the thing: is I don't read most of those team books that I think are their big books. I mean, I'm assuming that the Avenger books, the X-Men books, which there's 20 or so between the two of them, aren't those like their main books? Those are the bread and butter books. I'm assuming that those books are somehow all staying on kind of the same path, and then there's all these other, these few individual books where they're kind of doing their own thing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's their version of they said they weren't rebooting or whatever. But this isn't this kind of their version of that where they just don't care what happened before or if anything matches up and stuff. And then the other question is, does that matter? For me right now, it doesn't matter. It's been so long since my brain has been in the Marvel universe that with me picking up the books I'm picking up, I don't have an issue because I'm not picking up some of those. I mean, granted, if I thought about it, okay, I know Captain America's in all these other books. How does this work when he's in this Dimension Z for, he's been there for a decade now? Well, obviously, it's going to be that time moves differently there or something. Right. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But how do they reconcile the two when he does come back? I have no idea.
I don't think it's that big of a deal as long as the internal consistency of a particular title is maintained.
Right.
Does it have to relate to everything else going on? No. But Marvel has, maybe not Marvel, but perhaps Marvel fandom has long since, or for a long time now, I think, and this is coming from a guy who has not read a lot of Marvel comics in past years, but that was kind of a selling point that they would present, that the Marvel universe is more cohesive in many ways than, say, DC's universe.
Yeah, but it's not.
And it just seems like now that's not the case. And, for good or bad, it just depends on your perspective, whether you think that it should be like that or you don't care because what you're getting are good stories. I found it interesting, the status of the Marvel universe right now.
Yeah, well, it's a good observation, and you're probably right. Like I said, I don't read enough of some of those big books to know for sure. But obviously, the books that I read don't. The rest of the universe doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't. It's not like it has any. It doesn't seem to have any weight on what's going on. Do you know what I mean? The Thor book, it doesn't seem to have any. What he's doing there has no relevance to what's going on. Anything else, it doesn't seem. And all these books that I read are that way. It doesn't seem to be.
So in Captain America, what's the headgear that Cap wears in that title?
Nothing now.
Oh, nothing. Well, okay, so what did he start?
He's got a beard and long hair. He had the helmet, I think.
Okay, that's why I was asking, because Cap is drawn differently in different books. So sometimes he wears that helmet-looking thing, and sometimes he just wears the traditional mask that he has. So.
Yeah, I think he had the helmet-looking thing, but I don't remember because he didn't wear it for very long, kind of thing. I mean, the beginning of the book is a couple pages of him talking to, I think, somebody who's supposed to be like his girlfriend or somebody he's attempting to have a relationship with.
Sharon?
Yeah, he gets on a train. He gets on a subway train because they know this subway train has some weird stuff about it, and they know it goes someplace. So they're sending Captain America in undercover to see what it really is. And actually, the subway train actually moves through dimensions, and it pops him into this other dimension. And as it pops him through, he basically almost immediately gets attacked and gets held captive, and Zlov is basically kind of experimenting on him and torturing him, and then he breaks free. So he doesn't. I don't think he really has the helmet for very long. It doesn't seem like.
Okay.
Or I can't picture him in my head having the helmet. Just
as an aside, I really wish they'd get rid of that stupid helmet. I hate that helmet. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next month. December 2012. I only have 2 books here between us, and first up is Avengers, the Avengers title, by Jonathan Hickman, and art by 3 different people depending on the issues. Jerome Pena started it out through issue 3. Adam Kubert did another 3 issues, and Dustin Weaver is doing another 3 issues. So there are 9 issues out. This is not one you read, right, Travis?
I picked up the first issue and then decided that the story might be interesting, but I didn't want to pay the cover price for it. So I hear Hickman writes long stories.
Yes.
So I thought, well, this will probably be really enjoyable in a trade.
Yes.
So it's one of those things I fully intend on reading it, but didn't feel the necessity to have to pick it up month to month. So I will be getting it on trade.
Yeah. And I fully recommend that too. Because of Hickman's work on S.H.I.E.L.D. and Fantastic Four, not to mention his independent stuff that I've read, but he tells an interesting story. He's got big ideas, and they're really interesting. So I picked that up, and Avengers is like basically there's a conversation between Tony Stark and Cap before or after he either goes to or returns from that dimension in his own title, where they decide that the Avengers needs to be bigger. It's got to be a bigger thing to deal with bigger things that keep coming up. So they start recruiting a bunch of people, and basically anybody and everybody is an Avenger, right? Or can be. So that's kind of how it started out. But then there's this, and the way that Hickman tells a story, and I've heard a complaint recently about Hickman, which I can see, where it kind of runs counter to what I've been saying in some of my reviews recently, where character is really important to me, as opposed to, say, plot over character, right? Well, Hickman is very much, he's an idea guy, and his characterization there, while there is some there, it's definitely secondary to the big story ideas that he has. And so essentially the Avenger characters are just there to further the plot and this big story idea along. So it doesn't really matter who's there. But I will say that there were a couple issues where the focus was on one particular character. So the first one they did was the Hyperion character, which is essentially the Superman-like character in the Marvel Universe, or one of them anyway. And then they did one where there's this new female Smasher character who becomes part of the elite Kree Guard, but she's human. And it tells her story, which both of those stories were really, really good and very much a character-oriented piece. But then you look at the whole of the Avengers, and there's this these cosmic-like creatures, Ex Nihilo and Abyss, who are on Mars, and that's kind of how this first story arc starts out. It's like, oh, there's this thing happening that started on Mars, so all the Avengers go to Mars, and I have to admit I was kind of lost at first in this story, but essentially it is these cosmic creatures come to basically are affecting Earth from Mars, and there's this whole fight between them, and they're essentially looking at Earth as this the next step of evolution is going to happen here, and so that's why they're there, and they're affecting that evolution. And there's this thing called the White Event in the current storyline that's happening, and so something big is happening here, and Earth is in the middle of it, and the Avengers are in the middle of that. So it's, like I said, big ideas, good art. I really like the art on this, especially the initial one from Pena. I honestly did not even realize that Adam Kubert did the art on the second set of issues, which it says a lot, I think, about probably who was inking him, because I can usually tell Kubert's art right off, and I'm not a big fan of the Kuberts, the Kubert brothers. So anyway, and Dustin Weaver is doing it, but I think I've only read one issue of that, and I'm looking at my desk and I don't see one. So anyway, I like it. It's Hickman, so I'm drinking the Hickman Kool-Aid here, expecting something really fantastic to turn out in the end of this. So What did you think of that first issue?
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, that's why I'm gonna get it in trade. I mean, I thought the first issue was interesting. The whole Illuminati thing, I don't that totally lost me. But that piece of it, I think there I needed some prior Marvel knowledge to get that little bit of stuff. But yeah, the idea that there's this, you know, there's these villains sitting on another planet and they're shooting basically stuff at Earth to change the living matter that's there and stuff is frightening but cool. And they're obviously going to mess with the initial Avengers, and that's why you need all these other Avengers are being called up, right? I mean, to me it sounds like a cool idea. Like I said, I just didn't want to pay the monthly price for what my understanding is like you just described. Hickman tells this big long story, and I just think that's going to be better for me to consume in a trade format.
Yeah. I like I said before, that I definitely agree with that. I wanted to mention, since you brought up the cosmic creatures shooting things at Earth. So the last issue I read, the ex nihilo had done that and it basically infected the Earth in various ways. One of them was his purpose was to give the Earth a consciousness. And so he has these creatures in one part of the Earth that are basically hatching, and they're like these worm-like creatures, and then they combine, and that's I guess kind of like the brain of the Earth. I guess you could see it that way.
Really?
And so these two new characters that they're not Avengers, but they're involved in this whole thing. One is referred to as Adam because he was created from ex nihilo as the perfect human. And then there's this other guy who ends up with these basically cosmic abilities. He's the new Starbrand. And if you remember the Starbrand character from the New Universe titles from what, 84,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
85, something like that? Where Marvel tried to create this other universe separate from the Marvel universe, right? Well, here's the new Starbrand, and he's got cosmic level powers. And the Avengers are a little concerned about it because it's in the body of basically this teenage or early 20s kid, and it was interesting because they, in one issue before he got these powers, these abilities, they're showing all these panels of all these people talking to each other or talking on the phone or whatever. So the focus is on those characters, but in the background of all of these panels, as you go through these few pages in that issue, is this kid, and he's just a nobody. He's just he's working at the mall in a fast food place. He's at school or whatever, and so he's just your normal everyday nobody who ends up getting cosmic powers. And what happens in that one issue where the brain of the Earth, the consciousness of the Earth is coming alive, is becoming sentient. The creature thing, whatever, the brain, whatever, appears like it's attacking the two, the Adam and Starbrand. And so Starbrand, fights back and ends up blasting the brain.
Oh.
And Adam says, basically, oh my gosh, you just killed Earth.
Uh-oh.
And then the Avengers show up and go, you have way too much power and not enough control, and we're worried about that.
Yeah.
And they end up locking him and Adam in this, I don't know, this prison type thing. I think it's in space. I'm not entirely sure what exactly it is or where it is. And so that's how that ended. We're like, holy crap, it killed the Earth. So what's going to happen with that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So like I said, crazy ideas. They're lots of fun to read, though. Okay, the last book we're going to talk about is Hawkeye.
Okay, interjection time again. I'm including Hawkeye here in the discussion at this point at the end of 2012 because that's when the red bar that we discussed earlier in the episode appeared on that Hawkeye issue from December. But Hawkeye certainly fits the Marvel Now description, I would say, considering the creative team on it and basically the scope and direction of that particular title. Anyway, back to the show again.
Which, incidentally, was our pick for best Marvel title of 2012.
Yep.
Which I'll be really interested if we do another best of the year at the end of this year, Travis, to see where we're at with Marvel Comics. So I think we talked pretty much at length on that best of 2012 episode about Hawkeye. But what else do we want to say about Hawkeye other than it's still an awesome title?
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. It's just such a great title, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else I could say about it that I didn't spew on about a whole bunch the last time we talked about the book.
Just wonderful characterization of Clint.
Yep.
Hawkeye, is kind of in the book, but it's really about Clint and his adventures when he's not Hawkeye.
Right.
And
it is so much its own thing, separate from the rest of the Marvel hype of its own. I mean, because it's such a. It's so different. It's just so different than the rest of those books that are out there. I love it.
Yeah. I think the only complaint I have about it is that I would like to see more of Kate Bishop in the story, more than she already has been.
Right. They kind of put her in there as, you read the first page, which kind of explains what's going on in all the Marvel comics. She's always there. They always show her picture and whatnot. Here's Hawkeye, and then there's
because she's also Hawkeye.
Right. And she shows up occasionally, but she's not in it tons. I like that character, but I don't know if they overused her. I think it would change the book.
Sure. I just want just a little bit more. I like the interaction between the two characters, and the latest issues they've kind of gotten away from those two being together, which is okay. I just want to have Fraction bring her back into the story.
You need to read the latest issue,
and I have not read number 9 yet.
Yeah,
so
you need to read it.
Although
she's in that one, so
yeah. When I have it on my desk here, I'm looking at it right now, and there's that one. What's that one girl that showed up in the last issue? The one in the
redhead.
Yeah,
Candy.
Yeah. So she shows up again, right? I feel like I've read this already.
She says,
I need your help again.
Yeah. It's kind of suddenly we're going through the same motions we went through before.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story. That's part of the story is we've gone through the motion. We've got, because she shows up again and goes through these motions again, the other ladies in Clint's life take more interest the second time around.
Yeah.
So we kind of want to know
what Black Widow,
Mockingbird,
Jessica Drew, Mockingbird. What's Mockingbird's real name?
His wife, his ex-wife. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I can't remember. And each of them have their own, in this story, each of them have their own couple pages where it's like, it's Clint and the ex-wife, Clint and the work wife, and Clint and the girlfriend,
right?
Kind of question. Yeah. And each of them have their own things to say to him and their own way of dealing with the fact that this redhead has showed up twice now to their door, kind of a thing, because they all kind of want to know what's going on, and they all address it in a different fashion, and it's good. There's some good emotional content in that, and I just like Clint. He's kind of a train wreck of a character, and I enjoy the way we get to do that. I mean, I know a lot of people keep talking about the fact that it's kind of like rewriting Rockford Files for a comic book.
I had not heard that before.
Oh, haven't you?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the premise of how they're. Yeah, that's the premise of how Matt's writing it, is that kind of a level and that kind of a story. But I'm digging it. The ending of this issue is pretty tough, but.
And her name's Bobby. I am flipping through the issue.
Bobby, that's right. That's what it is.
Just looking for that because I'm trying not to
But I love the imagery in that book.
Yes, the Aja art.
The,
oh my God.
I mean, now does it make sense for when they when the redhead shows up to the house that they're wearing the clothes that they're wearing, because it's kind of a throwback 60s kind of a vintage kind of look to them?
Yeah, you're right.
Does that make sense? No, it probably doesn't make sense. And they wear that style clothing all the way through, but it's just so stylized and cool being that. Is there something about it that makes it okay in that book, because it just makes the art pop that much more, because they're wearing those kind of weird, dresses and stuff, and with the cards still stuck to their heads, because obviously they're playing some version of poker where that one card you can't see what it is, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah, and the covers for this series have been just
iconic.
You want to talk about cover art that captures your attention when it's sitting on the stands in a comic book shop or elsewhere, and pulls you in because it's so different. This is it. And it's such a limited color palette that it's so striking. It's wonderfully done. I don't know, how much of this is Aja and how much of it is Fraction, because I know, Fraction does his own thing, right? So,
right.
I don't care. It's just it's working so well.
Yeah.
Well deserved, I think, of our award for best Marvel comic of 2012. All right, that brings us up to, unless I've forgotten some, Travis, brings us up through December 2012 for the Marvel Now stuff. This is probably a good time for us to stop, and we'll continue our conversation about Marvel Now for the 2013 releases in the next episode. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else you want to add about these? Let me ask you, what out of all the stuff we've talked about, what do you think is the best? And let's exclude the Hawkeye. Okay. What about new stuff that something that started at number? You can count. I was going to say number 1, but you can count Red She-Hulk, even though it's number 58 of that series. That was a new launch. That was a number 1 essentially. They just didn't renumber it as number 1, right? So what do you think is the best title we've talked about so far?
The best
out of this group?
Yeah, I really enjoy FF. I to me that book is just really fun. Is it the best book? Yeah, I would even say it's probably the best book of that group. I just think it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying Red She-Hulk too. But I think as a whole, after the first couple issues, I think that FF is kind of firing on all cylinders right now, and is embracing to some degree some of the stuff that goes on in the in Hawkeye, and so I like it.
Okay.
How about you?
I will have to go with all new X-Men, actually. For the reasons I stated before, it was totally unexpected to be as good as it is in my mind, and the characterizations of especially Kitty Pryde and Jean are wonderful, and I can't wait to see more of that. So, and like I said, the premise of it was like, are you kidding me? And yet it's working. So, and with Avengers probably being number 2 there, just because of the high concept of it. So, All right, that's it. I guess we'll come back and talk about the rest of the Marvel Now titles. In the meantime, people, please send me feedback. You can do that by going to in various ways by going to longboxreview.wordpress.com/feedback. And in some of those ways, like email, you can send me email at longboxreview@gmail.com. There's the voicemail. Wow, I cannot talk right now. The voicemail number is 208-953-1841. If Scott Snyder can leave me voicemail, so can you. I'm just going to use that tag until somebody else sends me a voicemail.
There you go.
Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you soon.